super glad all of you guys are here. I'm going to back up so I can see you guys too. I'll go ahead and do this now. But how many of you are here for the very first time for Night to Shine? Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. And then I see many faces who are, we don't want to say old pros, but pros at the whole Night to Shine thing. But we're super glad you're here. You're going to hear a lot of gratitude from us tonight because you guys make all of this happen. So we'll get started here in just a minute. We do have accompaniment today. I don't know if you noticed the roofers that are working. They're doing their best to try to make the roof done and all their equipment and supplies gone by Night to Shine. So that's part of the reason why they're here working today. So we might hear a boom. There are no, pterodactyls or anything upstairs. It's just the roofers. So, but we are very, very glad that you guys are here. Lowell, can you go ahead and come up and we'll be ready to start. This is Lowell Eford, one of our members here, and he's going to start us in a prayer.
All right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today, dear Lord, just thanking you for this day. Thank you for all the many blessings that you give to us. And we just pray that you would be with Night to Shine this year, that this will be an exciting time, that we can love and serve the people that come, and that your kingdom will be honored, dear Lord. Just forgive us where we fail you. Thank you for all the blessings that you give to us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. So again, we are so excited and we're so grateful. Oh, we have a lot more. Come on in. Come on in, guys. That's wonderful. We've just been chatting for a minute or two, so it's all good. We are so grateful for each of you because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of people to make this happen, and we're just grateful for each and every one of you who is here today and everyone who will be volunteering the night of Night to Shine. I've been trying to lose my voice today, so maybe a little bit of that, and I apologize in advance for that. Our goal today is to get you out of here in as close to an hour as possible. We're going to try to answer a lot of the questions, especially for those who are the first time, that you may have. We will provide a time at the end for question and answers, but we're going to ask that you keep those till the end because we're hopeful that we're going to answer them on the way somewhere. But if we don't, please hold on to those and we'll take care of that. Night to Shine is just an amazing, I'm a little biased, but it's an amazing experience. I come to this personally, my name's Dina Jenkins, by the way. I guess I should share that with you. And I'm the, what we call the Caring Connections Minister here at West Ark, and just trying to help people find their people and care for those who might need a little extra help. So, but we're super grateful you're here, and we want to provide as much information. We want to equip you as best as we can so that everyone has the best night possible on February 7th. Part of that is from a message himself from Tim Tebow, because this is part of the Tim Tebow Foundation. And so he has a message for us that we're going to listen to right now.
What's up, Night to Shine volunteers? This is Tim Tebow, and we are so excited for Night to Shine 2025. Thank you so much for giving of your time, welcoming people with special needs into your community and church family. Thank you for praying. Thank you for serving. Thank you for loving each and every king or queen at Night to Shine so well. Why is Night to Shine so important to me? Because when you tell a king or a queen just how much God loves them, how valuable they are to the God of this universe, everything about everything changes. And we do it all for the one. If it was just for one, it would be worth it. And God is using Night to Shine because of individuals like you to change lives all around the world. Whether you're a buddy, whether you're helping serve dinner, welcoming parents, welcoming caregivers, or you're paparazzi on the red carpet, what you are doing matters so much. And it may seem like a small job, but man, in God's economy, it has a huge impact, and we'll never know the ripple effects. But we believe that God is on the move. And we are just so incredibly thankful for individuals like you who have helped make Night to Shine possible. We are seeing so much growth in new countries around the world, so many people joining the movement to celebrate God's love for individuals in the special needs community. In over 50 countries around the world, your heart to volunteer at Night to Shine is what makes this growth possible. With your help, we are able to reach more and more lives every single day with the love of Jesus. Romans 12:10 tells us, love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. And isn't that what Night to Shine is all about? Showing honor to every single king and queen. Man, I love it. That's why Night to Shine is one of my favorite nights, because we get to honor so many people who have never been honored in their life. And thank you for being faithful to that message, to that ministry, to showing the love of Jesus and bringing that faith, hope, and love to so many people that desperately need it. Guys, there are so many more that we have to get to, but thank you for starting in your community and loving those with special needs. God bless you guys, and thank you for being such a big part of Night to Shine.
It's such a shame he's not passionate about this, right? I share his passion for numerous reasons. I come to this personally. We have a 22-year-old son with special needs, and you will not see him here that night because he is not about the excitement and all of that going on, but he helps behind the scenes, and one of his titles is the official meteorologist for Night to Shine, because he gives our team updates from here on out every morning. So, but I come to that personally with that coming into it. But I'm just so grateful that you are here to just love on people who not only may not receive that love a lot, but oftentimes they're even overlooked and sometimes mistreated. And we want this night to be the exact opposite of that. We want them and those who care for them to feel God's love throughout the entire evening. So with that in mind, we're going to share a lot of information. It's going to be a little bit like a fire hose, but we will be sending the video later, probably early next week. And then we will also send the slides so you can digest at your own leisure, as they say. So you can see the vision here. Some of these I'm not going to read verbatim because you are intelligent people and you're going to have the slides. But we do want to share some highlights with you as we go through, and like I said, we'll have questions at the end, question and answer if you need that. But Night to Shine is for those with special needs who are 14 years and older, and we have had them from 14 to in their 80s, and we absolutely love every sector of that, so it's a wonderful thing. For those of you who especially are new, the basic premise of it is a prom-like experience for those with special needs. And so they're going to have red carpet. They're going to have a limo ride. They're going to have paparazzi, the best of the paparazzi kind, the best kind of paparazzi. They're going to have a crown or tiara. They're going to have corsage and boutonniere and dining and dancing and karaoke and all sorts of fun things to make their night just the best that it can possibly be. That's our aim. With everyone in this room, that's our aim, is to make it the best we can for them. Last year, these are some stats from that. It just continues to grow every year, so we are hugely thankful to be able to be a part of it. This is our 9th year. It's the Foundation's 11th year, and again, we're just thankful to be a small part of it however we can be. So, now to the nitty-gritty, okay? We're going to ask that everyone that evening arrive at the latest between 4:30. I'm going to mess it up already. 4:30 and 5:30. Now, some of your individual teams, all of them should be communicating with you via email. So I know some of the younger ones, you don't normally check email, but I'm going to ask you to check it for that information. And they may need you to come even earlier, especially like, for instance, the check-in team. We have to check everybody in, so we got to be ready for that. But look for those emails, but everybody needs to be here between 4:30 and 5:30 to make sure we're all ready to go and serve our kings and queens well. Non-buddy volunteers are going to go. There'll be a set of tables and some canopy tents out in front of our big canopy out here. And so the non-buddy volunteers will check in that space. We're going to talk a little bit more about the check-in process in just a little bit. But non-buddies will go there. Buddies will go to these entrances up here. We have a large ramp that some of the machinery is on right now. But you'll be coming off that ramp or the sidewalk and checking in those places. You may be asking, how do I know? I had the first choice and second choice. How do I know what team I belong to? We've had one set of assignments that have already gone out. There'll be at least one more set because people continue to register. And so we'll be updating that at least once per week until Night to Shine happens. So, but if you have any questions, and we'll say this a couple of times through if you ever have any questions, the best way to reach us is nts@westark.org. That goes to our entire planning team, who I'll introduce here in just a little bit. But that's the fastest way to get in touch with us. And Jordan and I up there kind of race sometimes to see who can respond the fastest, and he almost always beats me. So let's see. Talked about your team leaders. Will probably give you specific instructions. If you haven't heard from your team leader, say the week of, please email us at that, and we'll get you whatever information you need, okay? Volunteer parking, and we're going to have maps for a lot of this too, so don't think you have to commit it to memory, but volunteer parking is going to be in the UFAS parking lot across Alabama Avenue, because we want our guests to be able to have the closest parking. We will have shuttles, courtesy of our team leader, Ron Hamilton, back here. They'll have shuttles to bring people up to the building, but we do ask that you park over there so that we have the closest spaces for our honored guests. This is one map of the crow's view, the bird's view of everything here. Again, you'll get this, so we'll have copies that night as well for you if needed. We talked about the parking. We may be able to use some of this. We may still have roofing equipment here, so we may have to do some adjustments there too, but we just ask that people park as far away as possible. And UFAS is very gracious to let us use those parking lots for us for that evening. So access to this event is limited only to those who have registered, and there are numerous reasons for that. The most important one is safety. It is first and foremost in our minds to keep our kings and queens especially as safe as possible, because this can be a really vulnerable population, and we want to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to keep them safe. Pardon me. So while we want as many people to be involved as possible, we aren't going to be able to accept people that evening for that very reason. If someone comes and they want to volunteer, they would be welcome to join the red carpet, but they would have to stay outside, because the badge, the ID badge that each of you will get, is your entrance into the interior. And our security guys take that pretty seriously. We'll talk more about that in just a second. All of our volunteers are credentialed. We run background checks, and you're not responsible for that. That's why we ask for all that information on the front end, so that we can take care of those. We uploaded about 200 or so this morning to get those going. So, but that's all, again, to protect our kings and queens and make sure we're doing everything we can to keep them safe. We do ask, especially as buddies, but whatever team you're on, to please don't leave your team without letting, at any time really, but especially for the evening, without letting your team leader know. If you're a buddy, and we'll talk more about this later too, but don't leave your buddy at the end of the night or at any other time. And again, we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Our emergency plans, basically we're going to ask you to be familiar with the exits wherever you are, because we're going to be all over this campus, as you can see from the map. And then our security team will lead us should there be an emergency. We'll rely on them for that. Before you arrive, we do ask that you eat. We will have snack stations and water that will be available to the workers and things like that, but we're here to serve, and so we're going to ask that you try to take care of that ahead of time, so that we can best serve our kings and queens and their caregivers. And most importantly, we just ask for prayer. We have tried to bathe this event in prayer for months now, really starting from the end of last year's, and just want to continue that, because we know how important that is, and it gets us through. It gets us through on those harder days, for sure. Pray for good weather, especially. It's looking okay so far. So it takes a lot of teams to make this happen, and this is just a listing of them here. We're going to get you familiar with names and faces with the team leaders so that when you come, you'll be like, okay, that's one of my people there. The blue crew will be people in blue shirts. They're kind of a teal. None of us wore ours tonight, and that's okay. But it's kind of a teal color. It'll be the four of us on the planning team, which is myself, my daughter Abby, Jordan, who's up there, and Meredith, who you probably saw out in the foyer. We're the planning team, so that's who those emails go to at nts@westark.org. And then we'll have a few others in the blue shirts, and those are basically the people that if you need anything during the night, you look for us. And we may not be able to handle it on the spot or whatever, but we'll get you taken care of one way or the other. That is our primary focus that evening. The fire, we put out the fires as part of our goal. Stacy James is going to be leading the check-in team, and they have several teams within the check-in team, but she's our leader for that. We're very, very grateful. We have some changes to that process that we'll be talking about in a little bit as well. Always trying to make it more efficient and best for everyone that we can. I already mentioned Ron Hamilton. He's our transportation leader, but he also has another role. We call him the bulldog of Night to Shine because he hunts down deals and freebies for us for Night to Shine, which we heavily rely on because it takes so much to make this happen. He's also the candy man here at Westark. He has candy for the kids on Sunday mornings, and so I've just combined that, and he's now candy dog to me. So feel free to share that with him too. I think he kind of relishes the role a little bit. So our coat check team will have coat check room right off the foyer here in a large room off the side. And you can see Brian and Shelley Robbins here, and Rochelle Brown will be heading that team. So if you have coats or bags, or we've had shoes checked occasionally, because we're going to talk about that again. Comfortable shoes are important. But anything that you need to take, they have a system in there to be able to leave those and then retrieve those later. Security and parking, we have our one of our leaders for our security team here at Westark, who will be manning or heading the team for the interior security. And then we have uniformed officers, including our own here, Robin Choctaw, who's with us every Sunday morning. She'll be with us. We'll let that go just a second. There we go. She'll be with us to, hopefully, she's had knee surgery, so her partner and or Robin will be with us heading out the security team in the back, in the outside exterior. Our food service team, which I was talking to some who are going to be on that team, the team leader is Linda Davis. She's been doing this with us for years, and we're very, very grateful for her. Interesting story, actually. A lot of the food that we get for Night to Shine for the Kings and Queens comes from the Sebastian County Detention Center. And if you're like me, that would probably be the last place I would ever think that would be providing food. But they have, and we work with Ms. Johnson down there and Airmark, and they're so gracious, and we're so very grateful for all that they do for us. So huge, huge connection there that's been a blessing. Our decorating team, we have DeJuan Cogswell, who's right here, and Trish Carson is, I think, still out there working somewhere. But they do an enormously beautiful job of just completely transforming this entire campus. This space, every space will just look completely different, but especially the gym. I always marvel at the gym. They turned that gym into a masterpiece. I mean, it is truly just a beautiful, beautiful spot to go and dine for the kings and queens and their buddies. So our caregivers, it's hugely important to us to take care of the caregivers while they're here, because often this is a 24/7 job, and it's not easy. So we want to love on them and let them have a little bit of a break while they're here. And so Mark and Cheryl McMinn do a wonderful job taking care of our caregivers upstairs. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, too. We have our floral team and crowning team, and we have Karen Pointer, who's back here. She helps us gather some folks to help not only with the crowning of the kings and queens, but also in a lot of our fundraising and donations, and some of the people on the red carpet. So we're very grateful for her. And then Colleen Frost and her team, I did it again. I did that Thursday. Thank you. Colleen Shirley. Don't tell her, okay? Don't tell her. But she she heads the team for corsages and boutonnieres, and they were up here just this week making all of those for our kings and queens. So we're very grateful for them too. Hair and makeup, and shoe shine teams, we get we get to give them just a little bit of touch-ups, just to get them all ready for the evening. And Tatum Thompson heads that up for hair and makeup, and Scott James is going to be heading up our shoe shine. Our game room was new last year, and it was a hit. So we're bringing that back, and our youth minister here, Joseph and Sarah Harrell, will be heading that for us again. The red carpet and paparazzi is our campus minister, Cade Richards. He does a great job just introducing all of our kings and queens when they get out of the limo, and making sure the paparazzi is up there to cheer everybody on and just have a really good time out there. Another good time around here is the karaoke teams. Brent Evans and Taylor Hunt. I'm not going to lie, Swift came to mind. It almost came out of my mouth. Taylor Hunt, please don't tell him that for sure. But anyway, Brent and Taylor, we'll just leave it at that. They had those teams, and we're very grateful. And that is a good time in there, especially if you like the music aspect of things. But our kings and queens absolutely love it. They have a blast in there. So, if someone has too much of a blast, though, we do have the sensory room. And Mandy Chilton and her team, she has a clinic here in town with all sorts of therapies, and she's an occupational therapist herself. And she and her team do a wonderful job of creating just a more peaceful environment if someone's had a little bit too much fun, gotten a little too overstimulated. And it's honestly one of my favorite spots in the whole night, but I don't go there. I drop people off there sometimes, but it's tempting. It's tempting. But we're very grateful for all that they do. And well, again, for buddies especially, we'll talk about that more in just a second. We do have a medical team headed up by Todd and Christina Harris. And we'll talk more about that as well, too. But we go to them with any medical needs at all for the evening, and they'll have a team who will be on call, we should say, I guess, for that. Dave Cogswell heads up our photo ops, which will be at the back of the auditorium here. It's just a place to get a quick shot of them, and then all of those are posted on Facebook, and they can go grab them and do with them whatever they want after that. The candid photo team will be all over the space to be taking pictures in the different areas. So Mike Burke, did I mention your name, Dave? Dave Cogswell heads that up, okay. And Mike Burke heads up the candid team. And I especially love to go back and look at all of those pictures because we're running around like crazy people, and we don't usually get to see that. So we're very grateful for those ourselves as well. And then we have our buddy team, our matchmaking team, and Kim Llewellyn heads that for us. We'll talk more about that in just a second, too. But they do a wonderful job matching up our kings and queens with their buddies because we want to have the best match for everybody for the evening. And then we wised up a couple of years ago and actually put cleanup crew on the registration form. But we are happy for any and all to pitch into that. We only ask that you follow the leads of the leaders, of those who have spent months preparing and packing and organizing. It really helps them for us to follow the direction, because everything that comes out has to go up into 2 rooms upstairs essentially, and it has to be organized to be able to do that. So we'll just follow their direction on that, and we're very grateful for them. Okay, what should I wear? That's one of the big questions we get all the time, and it depends is the answer. If you're a buddy, you want to wear something nice because you're essentially the friend for the evening is one way we call that. We do not want anyone to have to go purchase anything, though. We don't want this to be a burden in any way, shape, or form for anyone. So just something nice. We see everything from slacks and a top to full-blown gowns. I do recommend you keep the stilettos at home because it's a long night. But comfortable shoes, dressing nice, that's what we ask for. But please don't spend any money unless you want to. If you want to, that's fine. But food service staff will look like food service like you would see at an event. So they'll have white shirts and black or dark slacks, just so they'll be easily identifiable for any needs that come up there. Our professionals, meaning security and medical, they'll be in either their scrubs or uniforms. We'll have numerous agencies, law enforcement agencies here who will be in uniform, but you'll be able to recognize them by their uniform, which is helpful. Anyone else who are non-buddy, just come cash. Just come. You're welcome to have jeans. I recommend jeans and a t-shirt. The Night to Shine t-shirts are available, but they are certainly not required. Again, we don't want anyone to have to spend any money to be able to be a part of this event. So we'll talk more about that in a second, too. One of the things that's sort of kind of new this year is what we're calling the special colors of Night to Shine. We talked about the blue crew a little bit already, so look for those blue shirts if you have any questions. Purple is a new one for us, and that's going to be the matchmakers, and we're going to talk more about that in just a second, too. But they're basically going to be in the middle of the auditorium at these breaks to try to get those matches happening. And then red will be our plainclothes security team. So you think emergency, go to them, and of course the medical will be in their scrubs and uniforms too, so they'll be easily identifiable. We have a lot of information for buddies. Some of this will still apply to other, how many buddies do we have in here? Who have signed up for buddies? Did I already ask that? Probably. Okay. Very nice. We are very, very grateful for that. One of the things we're going to ask of you, and probably if you don't hear anything else you hear, please hear this, okay? Please never leave your buddy alone, okay? There may be times, for instance, and we'll go through specifics, but you may need a restroom break. Find someone else to be with your buddy so that you can go take care of that. But there shouldn't be a reason really throughout the whole night for you to leave your buddy alone, and that's part of the safety thing, right? Some of them, we have a huge range of abilities, folks who come. Some may appear more able than they may actually be as far as getting around in this maze of place sometimes, So that's the buddy's job, is to make sure that they're able to make it through the whole evening and have the time of their lives and keep them safe while we're doing it. So never leave them alone. It was brought up as a tip from someone who had lived it, that because we're going to talk about the food service and how that works in the dining room, aka gym, but it won't look like a gym that night. I'm just telling you. But if you leave your buddy, if you get your buddy seated at a table and you get in line for the buddy, you just want to keep a visual on him. Be able, just like you would, and I'm not calling them children, but just that kind of mentality as far as just want to make sure they're good, just check in, that kind of thing. Any medical issues, no matter how minor that might seem to you, if it's a little cut, if they say they need an aspirin or Tylenol or something like that, we really need to go to medical. And the reason for that is mostly we don't know their medical history. So an aspirin to us may be okay, an aspirin to them may be a real problem. So we're going to go to medical, let them either figure it out themselves and use their expertise, or most likely, contact the caregiver and make sure that their needs are met in the way that they need to be met. At the closing session, which we all end up back in here, ideally, we try, to all end up back in here at 8:45 at the end of the evening for a kind of little closing session. For buddies especially, though, please do not leave your buddy alone. Like, don't leave until you get a match with their caregiver. We want to make sure that they get back matched up with the person they came with. So again, it's a safety thing. We want to make sure that they're good with that. We'll also have goodie bags on their way out, and so you can help them with that perhaps, because we want everybody to be able to have one of those as well. And there are some times that the needs are fairly severe, and so the caregiver may stay and go along with you guys through the evening. And that can be really helpful with some because their needs are more severe. So, it is a good idea, we'll talk about this card in just a second, but it is a good idea to ask your king or queen just casually, hey, need to go to the restroom, that kind of thing, especially if you're close to one at the time. That's great. Just an FYI, we have at least one security person at each restroom spot. Again, a security measure just to make sure that things are on the up and up and no one puts themselves in a harmful position. But it's a good idea to ask that. I already talked about if you need a restroom break, just get someone else, maybe another buddy, maybe a blue crew, whoever, to stay with your buddy, again, so they won't be alone. There's our percussion. We knew it was coming. If you'd like to stay in touch with your buddy, we encourage that, but we also ask that you ask the caregiver for that permission, because some of them have different some of us, I'll put myself in there, we have different comfort levels as to their interaction with other people, and they know their person, their king or queen, much better than we do. And we had one of our psychologists one time said to us, we're the Adam experts. That's my son. We're the Adam experts, you know. So they're going to be their king or queen experts, and they're going to know what their comfort level is with that. But we have had several buddies through the year stay in touch with their kings or queens, and it's a wonderful thing. It's beautiful. But we need to ask permission from the caregiver first. So this card, everyone who comes, we said that card is going to be everyone's credential to get into the event, okay? We have volunteer cards, which just have the name and a scan on the front and an ID number. The same on the back this year. That's a change for those because those things just want to flop around all the time, so we just have the information on both sides. And then for the kings and queens on the front, it'll have their name, the scan which is for check-in. That's new. We're going to try it. And their ID number. But on the back, it has some really important information that when you first get matched with your king or queen, we ask that you just take a look, ask them permission, especially if it's on their body already. Ask them permission to just look at it, and because it'll have like their likes, the things that they're really into, and it'll also have their dietary needs on there. And this year too, we're adding an additional card with that card, so it makes it more visible that, hey, this person has some dietary needs I need to pay attention to. So be looking for that as well. Our food staff, they will have that information too, but it takes all of us to make that happen, to be able to take care of them as best we can. Another new thing is you'll see this QR code on here. That is going to be especially helpful, we believe, if you need to contact a caregiver, because you'll be able to scan that QR code and it will immediately go to call the caregiver. So we're excited. The Blue Crew especially is excited about that. And those who help with the caregivers upstairs, because that just helps a lot as we're able to, because it happens a few times through the evenings for sure, that for whatever reason, whether it's for medication or some medical issue, or maybe they need help in assistance in the restroom, because we're going to talk about that in a second too. We're not asking the buddies to do that either. But whatever need that the caregivers that we would need to contact the caregiver, that's going to be an easier way to do it, we hope. That is the plan. Okay, we talked about dietary restrictions. We're going to be very careful with that. The food staff is aware of that. We're trying to raise the awareness of that with the second tag, so just please be aware of that. I think I covered most of that already. Yes, and so we talked about when we go into the dining room, there is a line. There's a line a lot at Night to Shine. Not going to fudge on that, because there are a lot of people in here. We tend to have, I didn't even go over the current number, so yeah, let me do that. Abby's hard work here. We typically have, when all is said and done, 300 to 350 kings and queens, and about 200 or so caregivers also, and then about 700 to 800 volunteers. So there are a lot of people going around doing a lot of things. But the numbers just this afternoon, we have 516 volunteers, 297 kings and queens. And we're always in need of buddies. We're doing pretty well right now. Earlier this week, we needed 100 still. And now we're about at 30. But that number changes hourly, really, as people continue to register. We will close the registration for Kings and Queens the Monday before Night to Shine, simply to allow our team to get caught up and to make sure we're as prepared as we can be. We will accept walk-ins. We just require that they come with their own caregiver, with their own buddy at that point, who is a caregiver most of the time. Okay, so back to the dining room. When you go in with your king or queen, it's a great idea, and this was a tip that happened Thursday night too. When you're going to be roaming around beforehand, before you come in here and get matched with your buddy or with your king or queen, it's a great idea just to roam the spaces so you're familiar with it. And part of that for a buddy especially would be going to the dining room and just trying to see. We're hoping to have like a written menu by that point, but just see what's available so that you can then, when you come to the dining room, you can get your king or queen seated and then be able to tell them what's available and then go get it for them and bring it back. All the while trying to keep them visual, right? Okay. We have a lot of information. We'll have these slides too, but this year, the foundation, Tim Tebow Foundation, made some really good videos about just interaction with people with special needs. So we're going to show one of these videos. It's about, I think this was about 5 minutes long or whatever, but it's going to cover a lot of the material that we have in here too that you can look at later if you want to.
When it comes to serving individuals with disabilities and their families, it's important not to lose sight of the thing you're actually setting out to do, serving the person. Sure, there are logistical pieces to making Night to Shine an unforgettable celebration, from decor and catering to photography and limos, but when you get right down to it, all you're doing is making sure you're setting the stage well enough to give you the opportunity to serve the individual and to serve them well. And that all starts with building relationships. Building relationships is key to serving those with disabilities, and we don't need to look any further than to Jesus and the life he led on earth to figure out the best way to go about doing that. Jesus wasn't just a man for the people, but he was a man with the people. He continually went into the margins, sat down with the woman at the well, immersed himself with the crowd and with those who others set aside to see eye to eye with people. He's a Jesus who goes into the margins to be with his people. It was always about more than service with him. It was authentic relationship. So how do we do that? How do we build authentic relationships with our brothers and sisters with disabilities? When we are approaching that new friend with disabilities, we start by seeing the whole person, welcoming them with open arms, finding out what their likes and interests are, and finding things that you can personally connect with about. That's how building a relationship starts. It's about erasing the idea in our head about service provider and service recipient and just seeing ourselves as people. Two people who both equally reflect the image of God, who both belong to each other as brothers and sisters in Christ, and who are both made for relationship. Remove that barrier, and the rest is familiar territory. It's connecting relationally with another person, spending time in communion with someone else. Just like your family and the social circles you keep, the way that we build these relationships can sometimes look different. We all have the friend who is quieter and likes to do more listening than talking. We all have the friend who is the exact opposite, who talks a lot. And if you can't think of who that person is in your friend circle, that means you're likely that friend. The same goes when we're building relationships with people with disabilities. Let me give you a variety of contexts and examples to help you. First, we may know someone who uses alternate modes of communication. Maybe doesn't speak with their mouth, but utilizes nods or hand gestures or eye gazing. My goal is still to build rapport and build relationship. That's the exact place I want to start and end. It may just mean that I'll be carrying more of the conversation, or maybe changing up my dialogue slightly to provide more opportunities for yes or no responses. I'm still there and in it in the conversation, still very present, still asking about your day, making eye contact and connection, telling a joke here or there. These are the things that you do when you're trying to build relationships with a person. And the foundation of that, of building connection, of being relational, of being intentional, remains the same. Next, if you have the opportunity to meet someone at Night to Shine who is accompanied by a provider, whether it's a personal support worker, interpreter, or even a parent, be sure to still fix your eyes on the person, not the provider. Treat it as any other conversation. Ask questions, respond, and simply keep your eyes on the one who you're building a relationship with. In addition, some friends with special needs may occasionally need a little more time to think about your question or to verbalize their answer. Give them all the time they need to talk with you. Don't try to answer for them. Be patient and not in a hurry. It's okay to ask someone with a disability to repeat themselves as well. This shows that you're truly interested in what they have to say and you're ready to work together to figure it out. A dear friend of mine uses a wheelchair for mobility, and I've learned a lot from her worth sharing as well. There are some important things to understand when you approach a friend in a wheelchair. First, don't assume that you can come up and lean on or touch the wheelchair. Always ask first. This is an important tool that they rely on, so show respect by always asking first. Second, when you're communicating with a friend in a wheelchair, find a way to be on their level so you can look them in the eye so they're not having to adjust their view of you or strain to see you. Lastly, don't assume by allowing you to touch their wheelchair means they authorize you to push them all over the place. My friend Naomi has had too many bad drivers and was nervous with other people in control of her mobility. Again, always ask. We're all made in the image of God, all made with our own strengths and needs. Someone communicating in a different way, or thinking about things in a different way, or understanding things in a different way. Those don't equate to barriers hindering our ability to build a relationship with that person. There is still plenty of relationship to be had. A friend of mine has cerebral palsy, and his expressive language can be tough to understand. What isn't difficult to understand is his love of sports, however. So by establishing context and picking up on some key words that I hear Lucas say about his favorite team or about the game last night, I might not be receiving every word he is saying, but understanding the context has helped me pick up on part of it and gives me some good questions to throw back at him to gain further context and understand him even more, to get to know him even more and understand him even better. I now know my friend better through growing and understanding him, knowing what interests him, celebrating with him, and so much more as I've pursued relationship with him, with the person that he so distinctly is. No matter who comes down that Night to Shine red carpet this year, we aren't going to know the best way to serve them until we get to know them first. And just like anyone else in our lives, the best way to get to know them is to sit with them, to talk with them, to show them authentic care and attention, and engage with them on a personal level. Remember that everything starts with relationship. To recognize the person in front of you as someone fearfully and wonderfully made by God, just like you, recognize the mutuality of this, what they have to offer you as well, and taking the steps to make a personal connection. This is how we love and serve like Jesus, and this is how we grow into relationship with others.
So many great tips there, and again, coming at it as a mom with an adult with special needs, I can very much relate to a lot of what he's saying here. But we're going to go over some. We're going to skip some of this because he covered it so well. You'll have it in your email packet that'll come soon too. But we do want to go over just a few things that maybe weren't covered in there. We will have crowded hallways here, just again because there are a lot of people doing a lot of things. So just patience is going to be a key word that evening. And we can't be in a rush for numerous reasons, but we want to serve our kings and queens the best we can with that as well. I can't emphasize enough the asking aspect. We may see the most obvious need ever, but please always ask before you take an arm or before you push a chair or some things like that, because we're invading space when we do that, and I have a fairly large bubble around me some days, and again, that's one of our things that makes us alike. We all have that space or lack thereof, that we are comfortable with. So always ask before touching the chair, before helping in a physical way, for sure. And it's just a simple, may I take your arm, or may I push you in your chair, that sort of thing. You want to get down, if they are in a chair especially, want to get down on their level. Just, again, a kind of a courtesy thing, just to be able to best communicate with them. People first language. This one has been interesting the last few years because it used to be, I know when I was, in my former life, I was a speech language pathologist, and it was just drilled into us, people first, people first, people first. And it's important because I want people to look at my son as Adam, who's 22 years old. He's smart as more than most people that I know. He has beautiful hazel eyes, and he happens to have autism, too. That's one of his qualities, But I want them to see that amazing young man, Adam, first. And that's all that, if we go into it with that heart, it's not a matter of there's going to be a shock if you absolutely, accidentally call someone autistic or anything like that. It's the heart behind it, of being able to see that person first. Rather than what their disability may be. And not all prefer that type of language either. They may refer to themselves as autistic, but we want to have the heart of just seeing them as people first, the people God made them. There are some potentially offensive terms, and I say potentially because it is to some and not to others, so we're going to try to avoid them no matter what, but there will be no shocker, if that should happen, just again to try to keep it in mind. And then the same with offensive phrases. It's the same concept. We just want to love them and see them as the person God made them as best we can and treat them accordingly. He talked about most of this in the video as far as it's really important to, if they have a caregiver, even if they have an interpreter, if they have a device. Some of them will have a device that they use to help them speak. We want to talk to that person first, though. And it may be that doesn't work, and then a caregiver will step in or whatever. But we want to try to do that first, because again, it's seeing them as who they are, and we're here to serve them. It can be tempting sometimes to use a voice that we might use with a child, but these are all, well, besides some teenagers maybe, these are all people, and we want to treat them with as much respect. Not that we don't treat children with respect when we talk to them, but you know what I'm saying. We want to treat them as the people who are right in front of us, and address them as we would any other, or try to at least, any other 14-year-old, 80-year-old, whatever. Let's see. Yeah, we talked about the interpreter as well. We talked about the wheelchair. Service animals, I don't remember that coming up a lot, but if they have a trained service animal with them, that's their partner in life, really. They are very well trained. They're just amazing animals, but they are very, very important to our kings and queens, and so that's a huge ask first. Before you pet, before you have any interaction with the animal, that's a huge ask first situation as well. We talked about patience a little bit, but it may take some patience with the communication. But I love the story you told about the young man who loves sports. You can get these, and we're going to provide some of those tidbits to you too, that you can start those conversations with them. I don't remember if I ended up putting this in the slides or not, but we knew this year we also will have some choice cards. This is used a lot for those with disabilities, especially communication disorders. That we'll have a choice of everything that's available, karaoke, dining, all those things, on a little, not board, little sheet, and they can just point. If they want to go to karaoke now, they can just point to karaoke, or if they want to go to the game room, we'll have all of these things on there. So that'll be an easier way for them to communicate if it's needed. If you ever find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, and I know that's a very relative term, uncomfortable, because let's be honest, the whole thing may be uncomfortable, for some coming in here. But if it's a situation where you are really uncomfortable and just really unsure what to do, we do not want you to stay in that situation. What we do want you to do is to contact a Blue Crew. Look for us. We try to have one or two of us in each space at all times. We try to coordinate that so that we're visible and can find us. But we don't want anyone to get into a situation where you're uncomfortable or feel that your king or yourself is unsafe. I really can't think of any situations like that. We did have one time that the king or queen was in his own way being affectionate more than they were comfortable. And so we made a very quick switch, and the rest of the night just went on, But we want to address those situations sooner rather than later, for sure, for everyone's sake involved. Some of our kings and queens might get a little overstimulated. You can see on here what that means. It could mean yelling. It could mean all sorts of things. It looks different. But if you think that may be going on, that might be a good time to ask, would you like to go to the sensory room? If they're not able to answer that in that state, which would be possible, then look again for Blue Crew, for medical. And we're going to have, our plan anyway, is to have posted in numerous places throughout the spaces the best way to contact those teams too, security, medical, all of those. But please, don't feel like you have to handle all of that on your own. We want to be there to help. We're going to be kind, of course. We're going to come with a smile. We're going to be kind as we possibly can be, and show the love of Jesus all along the way. That is our primary goal. There is no reason, really, for anyone to go off and be alone with anyone else during this evening. That's not what it's about. That's not the intent. We are all here together to have an amazing time and serve our kings and queens. but there's no reason for anyone to be off. So there are going to be some sections of the campus that are curtained off, that are closed off in one way or the other, and we're going to ask that you just respect that and not go in there, because there's nothing there for you. There's not going to be anything exciting there anyway, and we don't want anyone to be put into a situation that could be compromising for anybody. Okay. As I said before, when you first get here and get checked in, after you get checked in, it's a really good idea to just take a little tour on all the spaces so that you can be familiar, especially our buddies. But even if you're on another team, go to that space and check it all out and get settled in and meet the team leaders and your team members of the evening, so you can get settled in. Buddies will need to come back here, though, obviously, to get matched up with your kings or queens. So we talked about the shoes again. I'm going to say it again. Don't leave the stilettos at home. Whatever is, we have had those checked in several times at this point. So comfortable shoes, comfortable clothing, and know that it is possible that your king or queen may see you as a boyfriend or girlfriend. We do not encourage that. We encourage you to be the friend, their friend for that evening and maybe beyond. But we don't want to do anything that would encourage that type of relationship, because that's not what we're here for either. So that includes dress. We want to dress modestly. We want to dress respectfully toward everyone who would be here. So that's part of that as well. One thing that's a big issue now, especially I know, is volunteer hours for students, especially high school students who are looking to get all those hours in. So we'll have posted someone in at the coffee counter out in the foyer to take care of that. I know some of you guys need that electronically, so just, again, that's what that email is for, nts@westark.org, and we can help you with that. After the fact, preferably, like the next week would be great, but we'll do whatever we can to help with that. Come dressed, we already talked about that. As far as what your role is, you want to be appropriately dressed for that. And it's there's our percussion again. It's a good idea if you're, say for instance, you're in the food service team, with checking with your team leader first, please. It's a good idea I'm going to have to talk over this the rest of the time, huh? It's a good idea to try to go and just see everything else that's going on in action. You've gotten your tour ahead of time, right? But now you're going to go and see it in action. But just clear that with your team leader, or at least a buddy who knows, not a buddy, that's the wrong term, a pal that you're working with, to let them know, hey, I'm going to go check things out, I'll be back in 10, that kind of thing. But we want you to be able to experience as much of it as possible too, but also be responsible to your duties that you signed up for. So we talked about emergency already. Whatever happens, though, stay with your buddy, please. And then we'll have the professionals here to help us through whatever may happen. It hasn't happened yet. In 9 years, we don't anticipate anything. We just want to be prepared for it, though. The medical personnel, and especially you, no matter what role you hold, no one here beyond a caregiver is going to administer any medication. Again, whether it's an aspirin, Tylenol, the most benign things that we think, we're not going to do that because we don't know how that could affect that person. We're going to go back to the caregiver and make sure that they know best for their king or queen. Okay, so we talked about the colors of Night to Shine. We're going to very quickly, I have 9 minutes left, so we're going to very quickly go through these new things. We'll send all this to you as well. We talked about the colors of Night to Shine already. The caregivers this year, we've tried everything to try to identify at a glance all the caregivers, because they don't necessarily they won't have a badge, but we got to be able to say they're a safe person, basically. So this year we're trying wrist bracelets, the silicone wristbands. They will be blue, similar to the Blue Cruise shirts, but they'll be having those, and that's going to be their ID. That'll get them through the evening. We talked about the QR code for the caregiver. We're also going to try some signature walls in different spaces, because again, we have lines sometimes, and we're trying to make those as painless as possible. So we'll have signature walls that the kings and queens with washable markers can write their name, draw a little picture. You guys can too, whatever. We just want it to be a fun kind of thing. We'll try it. We'll see how it goes. We talked about the check-in scanning, and then one thing we're going to spend a little bit of time in is the Betty and King Queen check-in system, because we're going to change that process just a little bit. So we did that. See, aren't they cute? Cute little bracelets. We talked about this already. Signature wall. And then this is the view of everything that's going to happen. Everything for the kings and queens is downstairs in one of our buildings or outside. There's no reason for any king or queen to need to go upstairs, and that's for several reasons. First and foremost is safety. There's nothing for them up there. There's different food up there, so it hasn't been screened with what is needed down here. The distance, stairs, there are numerous reasons, but first and foremost is safety. We want to keep them as safe as possible. So there's no need that if they need their caregiver comes down. And we have ways to get in touch with them as we discuss. But you'll have this information too on a map that night, as well as in your email packet. This is the general flow of things that will happen in the evening as far as the people who will check in here. Because remember, the non-buddy volunteers are going to check in at the canopy. The buddies are going to check in here and come on in for the flow and get matched with their kings or queens. So essentially, buddies are in the middle, queens are on this side, kings are on this side. And then we have a few changes to try to make this as efficient as possible. The first one being the scanning for the check-in. We are hopeful that will make that whole process more efficient, but we're trying to get hundreds of people checked in a relatively short time, so patience will be needed with that as well. But basically, as you can see on the map, and we're still familiarizing ourselves with this too, but the queens will be waiting. They'll get matched basically at the break, and then they'll come forward for the rest of the process to be able to get checked in. And we will be working with our check-in team to get that process down. But from your vantage point, that's the main thing you need to understand. You'll be matched at the break at some point by a purple shirted matchmaker. It literally says matchmaker on their shirt. Got to try to make it clear. And then the check-in team and the matchmakers will take the process from there. As I mentioned, upstairs there's nothing for the kings and queens, but it is all about the caregivers up there. We have an amazing team that loves on them and takes really, really good care of them up there. And so that is specific for them. The only exception to that is if you are a character, if you're dressing up as a character, you can go up there. There's a designated room for you to, the equipment will be in there. That's the word he gave me the other day, but costume, whatever, unless you bring your own. And it's just a space for you to get ready up there. T-shirts and hoodies. Some of you have already ordered these. If you have, they're available for pickup out in the foyer. If you have not and you would like one, they are for sale out in the foyer. Not required in any way, shape, or form, but they are available if you want them. Pickup, well, you guys are here, so it don't matter about that, but we'll have other pickup times too that will be available for those who weren't able to make the sessions. If you don't hear anything else, please hear this. Please be here no later than 4:30. 5:30 really is too late for anybody. I'm just going to say it. We need to change that, actually. But 4:30-ish is great. There are exceptions to every rule, of course. We understand, but that's the idea. And then some teams will have you be here even earlier, like check-in, to be able to be ready for all of the guests who are coming. If the check-in stations aren't quite ready when you get here, we'll have someone at the coffee counter to be able to get your ID badge so that our security that gets in place won't stop you and say, hey, who are you? Why are you here? Because again, did I mention they take their jobs pretty seriously? I got stopped one year, and it was awesome. I'm like, you're doing a great job. That is wonderful. Because something had happened. I don't know what had happened to my badge, but they were doing their job. It was wonderful. Anyone who needs access or wants access to the inside will have to register. We just can't make exceptions to that because we really want to do everything we can, as I said from the very beginning, to make it as safe for our kings and queens as possible. Because this is truly one of the most joyous nights of the year. We always, as a planning team, any volunteer really, but we always walk away much more blessed than anything we could ever give to our kings and queens. But we want to do our best to make their night just the best that, just the absolute best that we can. And that means just treating them as the person that God made them, treating them with respect, treating them kindly, trying their best to get to know them as people, just like we want, and doing our best just to serve them any way we can and to honor them. Because again, we call it at West Ark here, we call it the upside down kingdom. You know, we want to be able to treat people much differently than the world normally treats them, because that's what Jesus did. He definitely went to the people who were by most of the society considered outcasts. And unfortunately, that is the case with some with disabilities, and we want to change that. We want to be a part of changing that, of how people are seen. Sorry, I can get kind of emotional with that because I have one of my own, and it's just really, really important. We know that's part of why you're here, though. You have the heart for those, for people in general. You have the heart for those with disabilities. And our prayer always is that it's just a huge, huge blessing to everybody involved. So, we are to the question and answer session. So what questions do you have? What we're going to do for that is you'll say the question. I'm going to repeat it back, especially for those that will have watching it online. And then I'll do my very best to answer it. So what did we not cover that you need to know? Yes, sir. Uh-huh. Let me make sure I understood your question. You're on the photography team. You're a buddy. Okay. And you want to take pictures yourself. Oh, that's a great point. I'm with you now, I think. If you want to take pictures of your buddy, of your king and queen. Okay, I didn't get it right. Sorry. You're the buddy. Uh-huh. Okay. As a buddy, you're asking, as a buddy, can you take pictures and send those in to our team? I still got it wrong. Oh, okay. Well, here's the thing. That's why I'm not understanding it, because they won't be on the limo until they're paired with a buddy. They get paired in here. Maybe I didn't go over that process well enough, but they get paired in here. They go through what we call the royal treatment, the hair, makeup, shoe shine, all of that, get their picture made, and then they have the choice of limo, karaoke, game, and all of that. So, right. So, but it brings up a great point. If you want to take pictures, especially as a buddy, we do have permission for, Night to Shine, have permission to share pictures because we have a signed waiver for that. You, as individuals, do not, unless you are part of that team, okay? So again, it might be possible, but that's something to cover with the caregiver. You want to make sure they're comfortable with that. My philosophy usually is, if you have a question, don't. Because again, people's comfort levels are just very, very different with that. And there are all sorts of circumstances, especially with those with special needs, that the caregivers have to consider with that. So I hope I finally got it and answered your question. Okay, sorry about that. Very true, yeah. Spoken from the team leader of photo op, there are occasionally people who cannot have their picture made for one reason or another. And so that's another reason just to be cautious with that and to always ask first, for sure. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir. Uh-huh. Well, it depends. Sometimes they're able to go, the question was, if your buddy needs to go to the restroom, how do you handle that? I'm sorry, I keep saying buddy when I mean king or queen. I'm terribly sorry. As a buddy, if your king or queen needs to go to the restroom, what is the protocol? Some of the kings and queens will be able to fully go on their own, and so you just wait by the door in the restroom, like outside, and they'll do their business, then they come back out. Some will need assistance. That's where we contact either medical or we get a caregiver involved, because we don't want any responsibility. That is just not a good situation for anyone if we're not trained to do that. So we want to leave that to either medical or caregiver if there's assistance needed involved. Otherwise, they go in, they take care of business, you wait at the door, and you'll be ready for them. That they need assistance in the restroom. It is not, maybe it should be, but that is, some note it for us, but most of the time, that's a pretty obvious one most of the time, especially if they're in a chair. We're not going to we're not going to go there, but that might be something we need to add. But most of the time, they add that on the notes, and that will be on the tag. Yes, good question. Yes, ma'am. The question is, if you're on the medical team, do you need to wear scrubs? I'm going to say yes, because we need you easily identifiable to be able to do that. So yeah, and any identification that you have for your credentials is helpful to you, because anybody can have a pair of scrubs. Yes, ma'am. Great question. That is true. The question was, is there a limit of how many times a queen or king can go through the limo line? And the simple answer is no. The evening is all about the king and queen, right? So if they want to ride the limo all night long and keep doing the red carpet, that's what you're going to do as a buddy. Now, it will be limited in the sense of we do have 10 limos this year, so we've upped that number, but, it'll be limited in the number of times just physically being able to get through. But as for, like, a quota, no, not so much. We want it to be whatever they want to do. So, and some of them may hang in the game room all night, it's whatever they want to do. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah, great question, yeah. She's asking for those who cannot have their picture made, how will they know that? And the answer is we do our best to note those on their ID cards that they cannot have pictures made. That requires the team to really have to pay attention to that. But we also theoretically would be able to filter, as you said, to be able to get rid of those before we post them anywhere. Because we do post all the pictures in our Facebook page after the fact. So, yes, ma'am. Yes. The question is, will there be maps and will there be a schedule for all of the different activities? Yes and no. Yes, there will be maps of all the different activities and where they're located. No, there's no schedule because, again, once the buddies get paired with the kings and queens and they have that choice card, if they choose to use that, they're just off to the races to do whatever they want to do for the evening. So there is no scheduled time for dining. There is no scheduled time for game room because, honestly, that would be an absolute nightmare having to try to keep up with that. But maps, absolutely, that will be available. And then you kind of just have to monitor the lines and your king or queen's desire level for the different activities. But that's part of the whole getting to know them through the night. That's part of that process as well. Yes, sir. True. Right, yeah. To reiterate, the only scheduled thing is to be back in here at 8:45 for dismissal. And that's important, not just to close the evening, but it's also where we get kings and queens back with their caregivers and the people that they came with. Great questions, guys. Thank you. What else? Yes, ma'am. So are you a king or queen? No. Okay, sorry. You're a buddy. And your question is, if they have a neurological condition. If a buddy who is going to be found out to be king or queen has a neurological condition like ADHD, autism, that are invisible, is there us to signify to our king or queen that we have those? That would be part of the process. I would say that's part of the process of just getting to know them. And we're there primarily for the kings and queens, so we want to learn as much about them. But if you feel at some point that would be helpful to share with them, then I would say just use your best judgment to share whatever you need about yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to be part of the matchmaking process too. Yeah, so when you have the purple, oh, I'm sorry, repeat the question. No, I missed it again. The question was, if there's a service animal and a buddy is allergic to animals, is that possible to not be paired with someone? And absolutely. Like I said, we've had very few service animals, period, but it's worth a mention in our training. But yeah, that's part of the matchmaking process. So if you see that the matchmaker is trying to match you with someone for the animal, you can just discreetly say, I'm really sorry, but I need someone else because I can't do that with my allergies. Okay. Yeah. That is a possibility. We're always, buddies tend to be our things that we need the most. We're doing better this year, though. Almost scared to say it, than we have in past years, you know. But we want it to work for everybody. So that's where you find a Blue Crew. We'll discuss the problem, and we'll find the best solution for everybody. What's that? You'll take a zero tech. That's a solution, too. Yeah, that's great. Love it. What other questions do we have? Well, I'm going to ask David Morgan to come on up then, and we'll be here around. All four of us will be. If you have questions that you weren't comfortable asking in here, or other things that you've thought of, you know, we'll be here to answer questions for as long as we need to be. But we are incredibly grateful. You guys make this happen, and we are just so, so thankful for each one of you. No matter your role, it's important. It's important, it's needed, and we can't wait to see you guys on February 7th. So thank you.
Bow with me, please. Righteous Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time that we've gathered here, Father, and for this special event that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. Father, we pray your greatest blessings over this event. Help us, Father, to be the example that we need to be. Fill our minds and our hearts, Father, as we seek to serve those in need. And we just pray your greatest blessings over this event. We pray over those who have taken roles, Father, who are serving in this event. We pray that everyone that comes to this event will be blessed. And help them to know, Father, that they are loved. And that we just want to give you honor and praise and glory and all that goes on, Father, in this event and in every day of our life. Help us to serve you by serving others. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, David. Thank you all very, very much. We really appreciate it.